Welcome back to the video series regarding having fun with REST APIs with Rest Assured. In the first two videos of the series, we had a look on our setup on the API, and it's only natural that we continue with the, let's say, crude operations: create, read, update, and delete. And the first thing which we're going to see is actually how we can read data from an API. So if we open the detailed documentation of the API, we see that we have a couple of links here. And when we go to the link, we have different verbs. Some of them have get, some of them have post, put, patch, delete, and get again. For the identification, don't worry, it's also a post, but we will use that in a future video. So if we want to get information or to read information from an API, then we need to make a GET request. And this link right here is called an endpoint. We can, in some cases, we can just call this endpoint. So copy this link and paste it in a browser like we did here. Let's do this again. We copy it here, we paste it, and we will just be able to access that information or get that information without having to enter any specific authentication. We will see in the future videos that when we want to do different operations, for example, deletion, we need to first authenticate ourselves. Okay, so what can we do or what can we check for a specific endpoint? We can do the first check that we just did. So we can call the endpoint, we can call the get operation, and see that we will get this information right here. Unfortunately, if we do it over the browser, it's not really that visible. That is why it's usually recommended also when you do your testing, either if it's in Rest Assured that we're going to do today, or if it's in something else, it's good to have an extra REST client to be able to play around with or to experiment or to actually see what you want to test before that you write your code. You're a bit confused? Okay. Didn't want to confuse you. What I mean is it's good to have a client such as Postman, Insomnia, Postwoman, if you like, and to use that to have this request. So let me show you what I mean. So we have here the endpoint, and we go to Postman, and I can just make a new request. Per default, it's a get. I enter the URL, and I click on send. And you see here in the body, I have the response created, and I have a status code of 201. So if I would go back to the API documentation, so we're expecting 201 code and to have the created keyword. Let's do this also in Rest Assured. So in Rest Assured, I just made a small class here for our get tests. As always, you will have all the information in the GitHub repository. Everything that you will need is there. And let's just create a test where, let's just call it, I don't know, health check. So we do public void, the name of our tests, health check. And for this check, we won't check for anything. So we won't do any assertions. We just do get. And in the get, we enter the URL. And since we are using testng and we want this to be a test, recognized as a test, we need to put the add test add notation. And let's just run this. So in order to run this, you have a couple of options. You can either hover over it, right click, and you have run health check, or there is this play icon. You can just run the test. And as you can see, the test ran. Okay, but we didn't check for anything here. So let's create another test where we actually check that the response code that we receive from the call is 201. We saw here in Postman that the status is 201. So we do, let's say, public void health check code if you want, and we can just copy this part where we get the information, put the add test annotation, and we said, okay, we want to check for the status code. So how do we do that? Well, we need to put in a then. So we first get the information, then we want to check another code, status code, and let's write here the actual, the actual status code that you are expecting. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, and this passes. And to show you that it actually checks correctly, let's just copy this whole test here and make incorrect code, sorry. And let's say we have 200, which is the most common response code. And the test failed because we expected 200, but we got back a 201. See, we have our first, in a couple of lines of code, we managed to write 3 tests. We checked that the application is available by accessing the health check. We check that we get 201 back. And okay, let's explore this a little bit more. So besides this health check, we do have a couple more get operations here. We're going to focus on one of them today and to see what tests we can do there. And while we're going to, in future videos, to also create and update bookings, we're going to use others get endpoints in our tests. So we have here this get bookings. So if we call this, so let's do it either here in the browser, and I have here an extension which makes it nice and pretty, or if I do the same in Postman. See, I have a status code of 200 and I have all of the bookings here. So we can make the same also with rest assured. And let's check that, I don't know, let's check that the word booking ID is returned. Okay, so let's go to rest assured and we'll make check for content, and we have the get, but in this case we will not call the same URL as before, or the same endpoint as before. We'll call this one here, and then, well, we put the then, and now the then, and now we need to check. You can see it's already here providing us some information, and it says here body. Well, we don't want the the body. We want to check that a specific word or specific phrase is present in the response. So how do we do that? We have we're going to use body, and we're going to say contain string. See, IntelliJ, as long as we have everything set up correctly, as you could see in the first video where I showed you that all the configuration is available in the POM.xml and therefore also in the repository. It all seems really fluent right now. It's all like IntelliJ is reading our minds. We said, get the information from this URL. Afterwards, check in the body if I have the word, I think it was booking ID. Okay, and we make this as a test again. And let's just run it. And it passed. We'll do a check, an incorrect check for content, where we say, let's say we want bookings ID. That should return an error because it will not be able to find it. That is perfect. So let's see what else are we able to check. So let's analyze a little bit what we have here. So we have we have a way to check the status code. We can apply this also for these bookings. Don't need to. You can do that on your own if you like. We did it for the health check. We have a way to check for the content. Let's check that we actually get something. I mean, right now we check that we have a specific word, but what if we want to check that the response is not empty? So let's see how we can do that in IntelliJ. With Rest Assured. Let's give it a name. I don't know. Check body check. Check body not empty. I'm just going to copy the first part from here. And as before, I have the then, and now we need a way to check that the body is not empty. So we'll click again in the body. Oops. And here we need to get a little bit more creative. You see, we have a lot of options that we can do. And there is one functionality which is actually is empty. And it goes into this category of matchers. So is empty, to put it like this. And then I have matchers. And then is, and the value would be, hope I got it right, it should be false. So we're checking if the body is empty, and we're hoping for the response to be false, which means the body is therefore not empty. Okay, let's add our add test. Run it. And it passed. So if we wanted to, so this is not empty. If we wanted to check if it is empty, let me just delete this, and we would actually just make it here from is empty false to is empty true. Of course, this one will fail because our body is is not empty. But hopefully when we get to the deletion part, we can delete everything and we can rerun this test. Okay, so we saw a little bit, well, a little bit more what we can do with Rest Assured. I mean, the idea of all these tests is on the one hand to show you how you need, or what you need to test when you have an API, how you go ahead and test it, what strategies, what things you need to check, and then how you can do this both in an exploratory way with Postman or something else. Maybe if you want to need to use any other tool, just let me know. But the end result would be to have all the information or all the tests written in rest assured. So if we go to our application, to our Postman here, so we had a look at this get, we had a look at this body. You can see there's a couple of authorizations. As I said, we don't need to have any authorization here, but we do have something called a header. And an interesting thing which I believe we should definitely have a look at is that the, for example, here, we're making a request and we are getting back all of this bookings information. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to check that the information that we're getting back is in JSON format. You'll see in future videos how we will be able to validate that the JSON has a specific format. But let's actually do a test which checks that the header is application JSON. Okay, so let's go into IntelliJ and let's just do public void check response header. And so let's just copy the URL. Oopsie doopsie. We have again the then, yeah. And here you see, if we go a little bit down on what IntelliJ offers us, we have also the word or the option to check the header. And what do we want to check? We check that the header, the content type, the content type matches this application JSON char. Okay, so let's see, we have the content type to be, and let me just copy this from here. And let's just run it. There you have it, it passed. If we would have only written application JSON with the current code, check response header, let's say only JSON, we would have gotten an error because it doesn't match one-to-one. Yeah, see, expected was application JSON, and the actual one was also application JSON with the encoding UTF-8. Okay, so there you have it. This is what you can do, or a set of tests that we can do with get. So, and this is how to get information from an API. I hope you liked this video. If you liked the video, do subscribe. If you have any suggestions, do write in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one, where we're going to go a little bit further and see how we can create bookings. Thank you for watching, and as always, see you in the next one. Bye bye.